had to take that leap. And sometimes taking that leap can be challenging.
Taylor and Abby, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you guys on today.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited and grateful for the opportunity.
This is fun for me. This is my first time that I've ever had two people on the podcast at one time. So I think it's going to be even more, like double the fun, truly.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
We're excited.
So let's, why don't we just start by you guys telling the people a little bit about what you guys do?
So we are sisters, and I guess we really never had the intention of going into business together. We were in different career paths when the idea of the business, I guess, started.
Came to be.
Were you guys always really close?
When we were little, not so much, but as we've gotten older, we just got closer together, especially when Taylor went to college. We are 3 years apart.
Okay.
When Taylor went out to college, she went to Ohio. We're in New Jersey, so there was a big, distance.
Yeah.
I think that's what made us kind of come closer together, just because she wasn't always around.
As I was going different experiences, or I overcame them, Abby was going through them when she was either in high school or college. So just being able to be there for her as support and just another source of support, well, that really just brought us a lot closer together as well.
Because I'm like, going into business with family is either the best or like the worst. And my brother is 10 years older than me, so we have like a pretty big age gap, but we're also like very different individuals. And I feel like he's an entrepreneur, but I feel like if he and I were to ever do business together, it would be such a nightmare for me because we do like work and think so differently. Do you guys ever experience weird challenges like that? Or do you think because like you're sisters and you're really close, like it works out okay?
I would say in a way we balance each other out. I guess maybe we're a little bit weaker, Taylor is stronger, and vice versa.
Yeah.
You guys are like perfect business partners. In that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're definitely kind of like that yin and yang, but the entrepreneurial world was something that we've always been exposed to. Our dad is a chiropractor and our mom runs his business. So we grew up in that environment where going into more of like that 9 to 5 type of environment wasn't necessarily something that resonated with both of us.
Totally.
And going back to when we first started to come up with the idea of Empowered Soul. Again, I was in a different career path. I had my own skincare brand at the time and was doing thank you. And I was doing holistic health coaching, and Abby was...
I was in college.
She was still in school trying to figure out what it was that she wanted to pursue, but I would say it was still in some sort of entrepreneurial career.
Yeah, I also think it's really interesting that your dad was a chiropractor because that already means that like your family was already in like the healing space, and it made it like a natural path for you guys to also pursue something similar.
Definitely. It's just, we grew up like this. We just grew up in more of a holistic household. So, within just the whole healing, I guess, wellness space. So it just made sense in a way because we already knew it.
How did you start your skincare brand?
So I had bad cystic acne. I also had and overcame Epstein-Barr virus. So it's actually an autoimmune disease, and both of us actually are, we both have it.
Yeah, and I'm actually going through it right now.
It's something that can be passed through genetics, picked up just from in contact with others. When you're under a lot of stress, your immune system, it becomes suppressed, and any bacteria that you unfortunately are carrying can really just kind of become inflamed, and it pretty much rises to the surface and pretty much like just takes over. So at the time I had bad cystic acne, and nothing was working. I was on every antibiotic, orally, topically, tackled it from a holistic point, medical or Western medicals, everything, nothing was working. And it actually happened during COVID where the entire world was shut down. Like, I can't see any doctors. I can't get any facials. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to create my own skincare products and see what works. I'm not seeing anyone. The world is shut down. So my skin gets worse, or that the worst thing that'll happen is that, hey, it'll get worse, or you know what, maybe it will actually get better. Thankfully, that was the case. But at the time, I had no intention of bringing the product to production.
Yeah.
But Abby was trying it, our family, friends, our dad's patients, they loved it. And I was like, you know what, let's pursue this. So I did pursue that for about 2 years. And then our grandma was a huge part of the business. She would help us bottle.
Wow.
And at the time when when we did lose her, that was the first time we experienced grief. And I was like, you know what? My heart just wasn't in it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing kind of just led to another. And that's where Empowered Soul really came to be and came along.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that a little bit more. So like, I think this is an important point, especially like a pivot, you know, I think when you're on a path and you're like chugging along and things seem like they're going really well, something always comes up. And as entrepreneurs, you have to figure out a way to adapt and work through it. And so I want to talk about your guys' experience with that. Like, you were doing the skincare brand, you were like, all right, I'm going to pursue this into production. And then like, life comes out of nowhere and like knocks your feet from underneath you. What was the moment that you guys were like, okay, we have an idea here. There's something else that we want to do?
So I would say for me with Sono Essence, which was the skincare brand, like, again, it was very successful. I was in Vogue, Glamour magazine. We were in all of these big and large publications.
Wow.
And so I was at a standpoint where I had to make a hard decision where it's, how can I scale the brand where, hey, maybe it is time to start to talk to investors. How can we get into Sephora, Target, or those large retail stores? However, we were experiencing such a family
just loss. We didn't know what to do. It was just this monumental moment that it just made us take a step back and realize what truly is important to us. And maybe it isn't these external validations or things that are helping us. You know, and that's when we turned inward, I think. At least that's what for me. I was in college at the time. It was my senior year of college. And I didn't exactly know what path I wanted to take after college. I thought about going to acupuncture school, so I was kind of set on that, but not 100%.
Yeah.
And then when we lost our grandma, I was just like broken pretty much. So I turned inward, and then we started to go to sound baths and all these other, I guess, more spiritual wellness healing modalities. That's when I think these ideas about Empowered Soul kind of came to be.
Yeah, like you were connecting with other types of healing and things like that. There was like something that was nudging you in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. And through the whole grief healing journey, thankfully, we did have each other, and we have our family, which is very close. However, there's so many other people, men, women, even children, that are experiencing grief where it's not necessarily the grief of or coming from losing a loved one. It can be from those transition periods in your life where you're going from college to the real world or through breakups. And we just knew that there's so many other people out there going through the same thing, feeling the same emotions that we're feeling. Or if you're out, it could be a beautiful day outside, you're so grateful, and all of a sudden you find yourself sobbing, and it's, why do I feel this way? Is this normal? I shouldn't be crying. The sun is out. I should be thankful. So again, thankfully we had each other to get through those times, but we wanted to build a place, a community that just welcomes others in and say, hey, you don't have to feel this way every single day. You can heal. You can get through this.
Yeah.
but healing should never be done alone. You have a community, a safe haven that you can come be the most authentic version of yourself, but let's empower you so that you can continue to achieve your goals, your dreams, desires, and really hold you accountable for whatever those are.
Yeah, I feel like a couple of things that I want to highlight that you said were really important. One of which is that grief doesn't just happen from like the loss of someone close to you. I think we experience it, like you said, in breakups. Like there's a lot of like mourning that happens in that when you're like, you're mourning like what could have been, you're mourning a person. And also like you're mourning a chapter of your life closing. And like, it's hard to accept sometimes that life has to change and you have to go with it. And a lot of people like fight it and they try to like stay back and they're like, no, like, I don't want to go. But really what does make such a difference, like you said, is the people that are around you. I personally have such like a wonderful, like close-knit group of friends. Like my family is very close, but I think looking back, you know, my parents are wonderful. They did the best with the tools they had at the time, but it wasn't necessarily like an emotionally open home. And it wasn't until like my mid-20s that I found like my best friends who really were there to help me through like the hard times, and that I felt comfortable enough, like really, I think being my true self. And I think about this all the time now. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting old, but I'm like thinking just about like explaining life to somebody who's younger than me, like explaining it to myself when I was a teenager, or like I'm thinking about it from the perspective, like when I ever have kids, that I'm like, how do I explain this feeling to them? Like, how do I get them to not make the same mistakes that I've made? And it's like, I'm just in my head saying all the cliches that somebody once told me, where I'm like, oh, you're just old, like you don't get it. And now I'm old and I get it.
Exactly. It's true. And that our mom would always say the same thing, where she would always give us great advice, where you have to be selfish and build your empire. And to someone who's 16, it's like, what do you mean you have to be selfish and build your empire? It's like, what are you talking about? And I would say probably about 2 years ago was when that light bulb clicked. It went on. It was like, oh, this is what it means to be selfish, and to really just love yourself and just be happy with who you are, and just be able to wake up just in that pure essence of gratitude.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite cliches, I think, because cliches are cliche for a reason, because they're true. And it really, I'm just like, I'm trying to like life hack away from my kids to learn this stuff faster, so they don't have to go through the same shit that I did. And I can guarantee you my parents said the same thing about me. And I'm like, how do I do this differently so they don't have to? But I'm sure that they will. And like, loving yourself is one of those things that now, especially, we hear so much of. It's almost becoming like broken record, but it's not, it doesn't happen in the way that you think it will. You're like, oh, loving myself means like doing my extra skincare, or like giving myself a hug at the end of the day. And it's like, for what I've started to learn, at least for me, is that like loving myself means making the hard choices when I don't want to have to make them. So it's like, I don't feel like going to the gym today, but I'm going to go anyway, because I'm not going to take the instant gratification of like just sitting on my couch for no reason, when I know that like I could be doing something better for myself. And it's like that in every aspect of life. It's like mind, body, soul. I always have to make the hard choices. And the worst ones are the soul choices, where you're like, I'm sure that you experience this, your skincare brand is like popping off, and you're like, in all like logic, it makes sense for me to stay and to keep pushing and pressing forward with this idea because I have momentum. But in your heart, you're like, it's not right. Like, I can't keep doing this. And you have to make that hard call when everyone else around you is like going to tell you you're crazy, it doesn't make sense, but like you know deep down that something is telling you to go a different direction, and like that's the choice that you have to make, and it's hard, but it's always the right one.
Exactly. And that is so spot on and exactly what I went through, where it was coming to the point where life is too short not to go out there and experience all of the family events, life events, because I was sitting at home and choosing the business over friends, over family, and honestly, even over myself, to the point where I was so stressed. And again, I'm like, life is way too short to be living like this. At the time, I was in my early to mid 20s, and I'm like, I'm only 24. I'm like, I should not be feeling like this. I have the whole rest of my life to worry about. And it came to the point where my stress was so elevated, where it was affecting me physically, affecting my hormones. And again, I'm like, you know what? My heart isn't in it the same way. Something has to change. Totally. And so I started to evaluate and see what I can do to honor myself. And saying no, closing the business was something that had to be done. But in order to get to that next level, to see the beauty of life, to have those beautiful relationships where we are today, I had to take that leap. And sometimes taking that leap can be challenging.
Totally.
However, there is so much to look forward to. There's so much beauty and blessings waiting on the other side for you. So if you are someone that is a little fearful or a little hesitant, go for it. But the worst thing that will happen, it's really nothing.
Truly.
And nothing, because you're about to just open yourself up to so many incredible opportunities.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think I want to talk about this a little bit more, because taking the leap is step one, but I think the actual clawing your way out is really where the challenges arise. And through that entire process, you're going to want to stop or go back or just give up. And I'm sure you guys have a ton of tips and tricks and tools to help people push through, because I'm with you. It's easy to say from our perspective now, having gone through it, to be like, there's so much more amazing stuff on the other side. But for somebody going through it, it's impossible to even fathom that is the case. So I want you guys to tell me, what do you tell your community and your clients? How do you help them through this, the worst parts?
I think continue to go back to your why. Why did you choose X, Y, and Z? Or even how did you feel before you made the decision? Or how did you feel when you made the decision? Because a couple months ago, I went through a breakup. It was it was this relationship, I thought maybe he was the one. So it was pretty big for me. And throughout these past couple months, getting through all these emotions, I would continue to go back to, okay, why did I end things? Why did I end this relationship? And that would help me work through everything to move forward.
Yeah.
And then all these blessings came because I just pushed through, and I remembered how I was feeling before when I was in the relationship versus how I felt right when I ended things. And when I ended things, I felt like I was on top of the world, and I want to continue to feel like I'm on top of the world.
No, totally. I think that's my best friend recently. She just broke up with her boyfriend, and it took them a long time to separate. But I remember she called me after it was officially over, and she was telling me, she was like, I know I made the right choice because I feel so much lighter. And she's like, I genuinely feel so much better. And obviously it's not easy getting through it, because you still hit those moments when you're home and you're lonely, and you're not you don't have a friend to text and be like, let's go hang out. Let's meet up. Cause she and I are long distance BFFs.
Yeah.
So it's she can't just be like, Maddie, come over and hang out with me. And so it's in that moment, she's like, oh, I wish I could just text him to come over and hang out. But then she's like, to your point, no, I felt so much better after we broke up that I simply can't go back.
Exactly. And I would say another tip you could do is, or it's actually something that Abby and I do every Monday. That's a huge part of Empowered Soul. And it really just stems from just how we're feeling and honoring our emotions. So we call it Feel, Embody, Free, which are the 3 ethics of Empowered Soul. So feel. So how are you feeling today? And we sit down and we just ask each other the 3 questions. How are you feeling today? What is it that you would like to embody? And what is it that you would like to release? And then we threw in another question, which is, what is your intention for the week ahead? How can we continue to support each other along with supporting our community so that they can release whatever it is that is no longer serving them, but also honoring how they feel in the present moment. But now you have the whole week ahead to shift that. And what is it that you want to shift in yourself? Whether maybe you're feeling a little fearful on Monday, but as the week goes on, you want to feel safe, you want to feel supported. So asking if that's something that they would like to embody. And then the intention is is something that is a conscious practice that they can do throughout the week in order to feel safe and secure, or what it is that they would like to embody.
Yeah, I love that. I think the hardest thing sometimes is really acknowledging how you're feeling. And that inevitably causes a disconnect to the self. By doing it so frequently for so long that you start to just like not have a connection to yourself. And my listeners have probably heard me talk
exactly. And because no one wants to feel those heavy emotions where it's so easy to suppress that. But there's so many times, honestly, it's probably once a week, every meeting we have, because you think you're feeling good, or I think Abby's feeling great, or it's because I'm feeling great, Abby's feeling great. However, that's probably not the case. And she'll start speaking and maybe she'll start crying, or vice versa. And yeah, it can be challenging just to sit and cry, or to sit with yourself, or to even just to sit with yourself alone. But in order to grow, you have to honor how you're feeling and allow those emotions, those feelings to rise in order to be released.
Yeah, it's like a storm. It's like the storm builds and then it comes and it hits and then it's gone and you have like a beautiful sunshine day the next day.
Yeah.
And like as entrepreneurs specifically, there's so much pressure on us, whether that comes from ourselves or that comes from investors or from family, like wherever it comes from, we place so much pressure on ourselves to succeed. And that comes with heightened emotions and challenges in and of itself. Entrepreneurialism is really like a reflection of the self, and it requires a lot of introspection and a lot of self-awareness to do it correctly. And there's just going to be so many ups and downs. And like I had one the other day. I was just I was like not feeling my best self.
Yeah.
And like I knew it was weird because I was just feeling like, what have I been doing for the last year? Like I have nothing to show for it. And in my head, I was like, I think I'm just having a moment. In my head, I'm like, I just need to have this weird moment where it's like, I don't actually think that. Like I logically,
Exactly.
I know that I've been working to build something and I have something to show for it. I'm not a failure, but I'm just having a moment. And I just had to have the moment because I was like, if I hold this in, it'll come out in other weird ways throughout the week, whether that's like me snapping at my coworkers or like me just like self-isolating because I physically can't be around other people because I'm in such a weird place. So I was like, I'm in the car, I'm about to go to the gym. Like, I'll just take a couple extra minutes in the parking spot and just like let it out. And then I dried my face and I went and I worked out. And I was like, we're good to go.
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes you need those moments, and you don't know when they're gonna come, but sometimes you just gotta let it out.
Yeah, and it's taken me such a long time to get to that place because before, especially like the way that I grew up, and I think a lot of the way that we're trained to think is to just keep going, like everything's fine, everything's fine. And what's ironic about that is that everything will be fine. Everything will always be fine. Like you will always be good. Like that's just baseline level, like how things work. You will always be fine. And the key to that is, to your point, sinking into the present, being in yourself and being conscious and aware. It's almost like, how can I become a passive observer of my emotions while maintaining connected to myself? Because then I can rise above and I can identify where these emotions are coming from, why it's happening. So then I can make better choices to act accordingly. Whereas I think through repression, you end up becoming so disconnected that you're more reactive and reactionary, and then you're not able to make good choices for yourself.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we take our clients through, and how they are feeling, what the root cause of those feelings, emotions is. And now how can we release them so that you can rise and be that phoenix and just go after all of those goals, dreams, desires, because you are unstoppable and you're worthy of them. You are deserving of them. But it's just shifting from those, oh, I am unworthy, to no, I am worthy. I do feel this, and just going through that full throttle.
Yeah. How did you guys get your first clients? Like, I want to know sort of how you walked them. What was that first experience like? Like, what was that first client interaction like? How did you help them through whatever they were going through?
So I would say it depending if it were our classes or one-on-one clients. One-on-one clients, believe it or not, they came from TikTok.
Really?
Yes. This was going back a few years ago when I was focusing more on my holistic health coaching, where I was seeing them through TikTok, and then one thing, again, just continuously led to another. So it was one platform kind of laid that foundation, and we were able to continuously build upon that. Again, I had no idea where anything was going. I was really walking into everything with just blind faith and just saying, God, take the lead. Don't really know where we're going, but whoever it is that needs healing, I am here for it. I will help, guide, assist in whichever way, shape, or form. So I think when you really just choose to surrender and just surrender yourself over in and as a healer, and just open up that space and just allow God to, or even the universe, whatever your higher belief system is, just allow the client or that person to come in, they will be presented to you. And it's up to you whether you, let's say, see it or don't, but you're that one to be able to take that jump.
Yeah. So you saw this opportunity and you were like, this is the one, like, I'm going to take it.
Yeah. Where it came through from social media, just showing up, and I was just showing up organically, just trying to share information, share knowledge, just about what I was going through with Epstein-Barr virus. And a lot of others, they were able to relate through that. And again, just one thing led to another. And then once we experienced loss and grief, we were able to hone in a little bit more so on that and say, and really put that connection to when you are experiencing such stressful times, how it reacts with the body, where you can start to come down with illness, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, how it does affect the body. And again, we saw that so many others were experiencing the same thing. So we just continuously just kept going with what was in front of us.
Yeah. I think this is an important point also, because I think a lot of entrepreneurialism is trial and error, and it's a lot of following your gut in the moment, because to your point, you never know where it's going to lead you. And I think everyone has a tendency to say, this is my first idea. I want it to be perfect. I want to build it. Like, I want to see it through. Yeah. And there will be moments where you're either going to have to pivot and you'll have to be like, okay, this is working, but this part of the business isn't working. So I have to release that side and just focus deeper on this. And because half of entrepreneurialism is you being passionate about the problem space And then the other half is about like the people will tell you what they want from you and from your business.
Oh, yes.
And you have to like release ego to be like, okay, I hear you. And then I just keep going through this part. But it's like, for me, especially like with social media, trying to figure out what kind of content I wanted to make, like how I wanted to come out online. Because I've never been a product person. Like, I've always known that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I've never really had an inclination for what kind of like a product I wanted to provide. So it took me a really long time to figure out like how I was going to start my own business without a product or service.
Even us too, where, because it came from, because at first we were doing everything online, and we are such people. Does that make sense? People, yeah. Like, we love to people. So, but we love to be face to face with others, and even though the healing does take place, let's say virtually, it is incredible. It's still profound. However, when you're in person, it is just such a different,
because you're just able to connect
totally
better, and just that in person, the energy, the connection.
Like, I'm just gonna say, let's just call it what it is. It's the vibe. You can't
exactly,
like, the vibes are much like stronger in person, and like you can really get a feel for somebody. And I think like I feel very similar. I want to create an environment with these podcasts where it feels like you and I are just hanging out over coffee and like chatting. We're getting to know each other. We're having a good time. And I would love to be and to do them in person, because I can imagine that the energy of the space would be so much more like electric, and it would be so fun. But that limits possibilities right now.
Exactly.
And
we went through the same thing where it came to a point where we were renting space for Empowered Soul, hosting our classes or workshops, and like, we just needed a space of our own. And we were couldn't necessarily find what it is that we were looking for. Just kept manifesting and doing our journaling, and it came to, actually, I thought of it, but I'm like, I don't know. But a family friend of ours, she's like, you know what? Why don't you just turn your grandma's apartment into your whole studio? It's everything that's on your list, everything that you want. And I was like, yeah, I don't know.
I was like, absolutely not. I was like totally against this. I was like, I don't want these random people in this like sacred space, because it's my grandma's space, and I don't, these energies are going to be in here. And so at first I was totally against it, and then we just kind of kept talking about our manifestations and what we want the space to be and feel like. And then, well, here we are,
where it was everything that we could have dreamt of and more, where it just worked out perfectly. And within, I think we went from the idea came to us 3 days later. The construction guys were in here, starting all of construction renovations, and this was back in early October. We designed everything in 3 days. Have no idea how we did it. All of the things that we ordered online, somehow it honestly, it was divinely guided.
Really?
Where everything that we were ordering, we're like, I'm not sure if this is going to match, but we're just going to order it. As everything started to come in, we were opening boxes. We were just looking at each other.
With this green wall, we ordered a green couch online. We're like,
on Amazon.
Yeah. Like, I hope this looks good. I take it out of the box, and it's exactly the same color. Like, it's like exact. It's just crazy.
I think all the time, when you're doing the right thing, when you are on the right path, things just flow. And like, to me, I always say this to people who are like skeptical, or who, sort of like are on the other side still, that haven't gotten it yet. And I'm like, okay, listen, you're not, I get it. You're logical. I used to be you. I get it. And if you want quote unquote proof of things going good for you, or like that things are moving in the right direction, or you want like a universe or like God proof, whatever you want to call it. When you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and the things are flowing faster than you can understand it, that's proof. Like that's how you
exactly.
Amen.
that you're on the right path.
Exactly. It's so true. And there are times where I do find myself in my old mindset, but then I'm able just to snap out of it and say, no, like I actually don't have to create and batch all this content in order to just have one person sign up. Like, you know what? No, I'm going to manifest it. I'm going to just show up as my authentic self and just say, I know that person or we are going to have a sold out class. And believe it or not, it happens at the end of the day.
My friend asked me the other day, I feel like she's starting to get into this whole situation. She's been asking me like a lot of questions lately where I'm like, I know where you're going with this. But she started reading a book on manifesting. And so I think it'd be nice to tell the people what your guys' tools are and how specifically you guys manifest what you want to manifest. And like, there's somebody listening right now that's like about to turn off the podcast because they're like, we're talking about manifestation. I'm like, let's wait. Just wait 1 second, because I think manifesting is something people talk about a lot online. And like, if you want to put a different word in there, fine. Actually, you know, I'm gonna let you guys tell. I want you guys to talk about it.
So we are manifesting pretty much every moment, every second of the day, whether it be positively or, I don't want to say negatively, because everything serves a purpose, whether it be, again, everything is going to serve you one way or another. Yeah. It's going to serve that purpose. So we manifested this podcast chat, whether you, I, or Abby, it all brought us to this present moment, whatever we have been doing.
Yeah.
So manifesting is really just taking those conscious actions towards what it is that you desire, basically getting what you want. However, it can be in a positive or not so lighter way. So for example, last year, I'll give you an example of something that's, let's say, in that more negative way. So last year, one of my intentions was to create more balance for my life. Balance in a way of just being able to ebb and flow. However, you have to be so specific when it comes to asking for your desires or just for manifesting, where I said I want more balance in my life. This was January of 2023. In May, I ended up spraining both of my ACLs.
Yeah.
Which completely it really shook my whole foundation. However, months later, I was able to find the balance of work, life, play, along with learning so many beautiful lessons, coming back home to myself, learning and truly feeling that self-love. However, you can do so without creating injury or creating things that will knock you off your butt. But when it comes to manifesting, just being as specific as you can, but also knowing what it's like to feel. The feelings are just as important as the thing that you're asking for, because you could be saying, oh, I want a new relationship, I want a new job, but maybe there's something blocking that where you don't really feel worthy of receiving that desire. But if you could start to create your reality, create those emotions, create those feelings. Now this could be through meditation, and just sitting with yourself and starting to visualize that reality and create those feelings. It's more powerful. So that when those things do start to show up in your day-to-day life, you already know that desire, that manifestation, it is yours. It does belong to you.
Yeah.
I would even say, yes, when you think of manifestation, you think of this big, beautiful thing you're doing in meditation, or you have to really sit with yourself and sit in this meditation. I would even say, even just start with how you talk to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you look in that mirror and you say, oh, I'm breaking out. Oh, I hate how I look right now. Or I don't like my, these clothes, how they fit. How you talk to yourself and how you have these these thought patterns, that is also manifestation.
Totally.
Because if you talk about yourself in these negative ways, it will continue, right? So if you just start changing your thoughts, your life will change.
Oh, 100%.
I would say your thoughts create your actions, and that your actions truly create your reality. So you're the magician, you're the master. And so what reality are you wanting to live? Do you want to live a reality where you really don't love yourself? Or every time you, like Abby was saying, you look in the mirror and you say, ooh, I am ugly.
I can't even look at myself today.
Exactly. Yeah. Or do you want to show up and say, wow, I look amazing. This dress looks great on me. Or even it's just, I look beautiful just the way I am at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. I did something similar. Like, I've been playing with this a lot for a long time now. And one of the things that really helped me was, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of her, but her name is Lisa Alexandra. She is a YouTuber. She has a lot of, I think like her most powerful things that she does, she creates these really amazing subliminals that you can listen in the background, and they have all of these amazing things. Like, she has different ones for like lucky girl syndrome, like, you know, winning the lottery, whatever. And it like, that shit actually works. Like, it's pretty wild. And she has these morning affirmations that I was doing for a really long time. And it's exactly like you're talking about. Hers are a little bit more generic, and it's like, you know, I'm grateful for my body and its ability to heal itself. Like, I'm a money magnet, like all of these things, but it does help. And my other thing that I do, like, I'll tell you a story. Before I got my 9-to-5 job that I have now, I was working freelance for about a year. And really what I was trying to do is I'd been trying to find a job for like 6 months, and I was applying everywhere because, you know, that was what I was supposed to do. I had one job and then I go to another job. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. And so I was like, okay, well, I got to do that. And so I'm like applying on LinkedIn, and I'm like, you know, my heart's really not in it. And I thought it was. And eventually, through the process of just consistently getting rejected like every single day, it's enough to make you feel some type of way as a person. You're like, well, I'm a terrible individual. Why would anybody hire me? And then you start to have all these questions to where you're like, am I worthy? Like, why would somebody hire me? Like, what am I doing with my life? Literally, like, all of these things are compounding to the point where I'm having a mental breakdown and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And then I'm like, okay, well, this is a great opportunity to reevaluate, rethink everything. And then that's when I started the blog and the podcast, because I was like, really, I don't want to be working for somebody else the rest of my life. And like, basically, long story short, the whole reason why it took me a full frickin' year to get a job is because A, I had to figure out what I really wanted out of my life during that time. And also B, there was a lot of like personal development that comes through that for me. There's a lot of understanding my power and how I can access that. And essentially, once I had gotten the blog up and running and I was doing Rover and Wax, I was like walking dogs. And I was starting to realize, like, you know, gosh, I'm getting all these clients and it's great and I have all this momentum and I'm like making money, but like I started to dread it. Every time I get a new client, I'm like, I have to go to another one. And I'm like, you know, I got another one in an hour, and I got all this other shit I got to do. And like, I'm starting to dread it. And so I'm like, okay, something is changing. Like, something is happening where I want to be in a different place now. Like, that's essentially what my gut's telling me, is I'm like, if I'm dreading it, I don't want to do it anymore. And so then I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do now? And I was like, really what I want is freedom. I want to be able to have financial stability and have freedom to travel, see my friends, because they all live across the world. I want to be able to buy them stuff for their birthdays because I physically can't afford to do so right now. And that's really what I wanted. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, well, like, I just want financial freedom and I want to be able to work on my podcast. Like, that's the job that I want. So I was like, well, I guess I'll start like applying, you know, maybe I'll be like, I'll work the counter at Equinox, or like, you know, that'd be great because then I can get my gym membership for free. And this tech job literally fell into my lap. My brother's friend messaged me, and because I've watched her cats, and she was like, hey, we have an office manager position available at this tech startup. I think you'd be a great fit. And I walked out of the interview and I was like, I got the job. And it was
That's
wild.
amazing.
I wasn't looking for anything like that. I didn't want anything. I wasn't looking for anything prestigious. I wasn't looking for anything with like a high paying price point. Like that's not what I was focusing on. What I was focusing on was freedom and financial stability. That's what I wanted. And this job has been perfect for me because as an individual, I'm very motivated. So like if I get into this place, it becomes my personality. And I didn't want a job that would become my career because I want this to be my career. And so then to have this job that's like, I'm an office manager, that's not my career, but I show up at a beautiful office. My work is very simple. It's easy for me to handle. I can still have enough creative energy for my podcast and I make enough to travel for fun. Like I was like, this is what manifesting is. It's about following your like your desires really. And to your point, it's about thinking, not necessarily like building exactly what you had in your head. It's more about what do I want right now emotionally? Like, what is that? And then by focusing on that. So like by focusing, what I mean is I would either meditate on it or simply like, I would literally just sit down and be like, what does financial stability and freedom feel like to me? And I get this like, I get this butterfly feeling in my tummy. And I'm like,
exactly.
And so I'm like zero in, like mentally, like focus on that until it starts to somehow manifest in your real life. And so like for the people listening, these are the tips and tricks that you can take home to be like, okay, now what do I want? And you can start to build your dream lives, literally.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. It's focusing on those feelings and what you want rather than what you should be or what you should have. So what in this moment, what is it that I want, really?
Yeah. Oh, this should is like my least favorite word on the planet. This was my life for so long. It's like, Maddie, you should be getting straight A's. Maddie, you should be going to college here. Maddie, you should be wanting this kind of a job. Maddie, you should be this. You should do that. And it's like, eventually, when you program your mind to think that way for long enough, that is how you start to think every day. And then like your whole life becomes about other people's ideas of you and what they want for you and what they think you should be doing because it's their ideas and it's no longer yours. And then you're just lost and you have to like
Exactly.
It's like you're just being controlled by all these external things. And it's like, then you just don't even know who you are at that point.
You're not driving the boat. Somebody else is
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. You have all these programs within you because your mind, it's literally like a computer.
Yeah.
And you could either be in control or allow others to control you. And so it's up to you what reality you want to have. But I would say choose the control in order to be happy so that you can break free of those programs, those outdated limiting beliefs, any fears. You can overcome those.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out though, for my control freaks, because this was something that I also had an issue with. Like I was definitely a control freak and like everything had to be perfect. And I was wound so freaking tight because like I would do something and then when it wouldn't work, I'd go in like a full spiral and I'd be like, why is nothing working? And it's because like this is one of those moments where you're like, the universe is full of contradictions because you have to be in control of your emotions, but you cannot control the outcomes, which is like part of that surrenderance to where you're like, I know nothing. I don't know what's best for me, truly. I don't know what's coming next, but I know the only thing that I do know is that everything's going to work out. And so you have to like sink into the present and try to reconcile these contradictions in a way where you can see the gray or like the silver line that sort of is your path. Does that make sense?
Yes,
it does.
It's true. Because both of us, we went to Catholic school growing up. So just having that structure, a very structured routine was something that we've always, I guess that was our normal from growing up. And just having to be perfect, or when someone immediately walks into the room, you have to greet them.
Yeah.
And so even both Abby and I, we've been, programmed to have that perfectionism, to be in that control, that to have a little bit more of control, and especially myself as the older sister. Mm-hmm. So it has been one of my biggest challenges, along with being a solo entrepreneur. Now we're a team, and to have that balance where it is a challenge that I am working through and overcoming, so that we can have that partnership, but just relinquishing control, and just allowing and knowing that things will work out in the most perfect way, but also the best way, where if instead of myself doing something, I'm like, no, what, Abby, I know she is capable of doing it. I'm going to allow her to do it instead of taking on too much.
Yeah. How do you feel about going from solo entrepreneur to now having a partner? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs go into it solo, and I think that there are some people out there who really need a co-founder, and then I think there are also others who might like be able to handle it themselves. But I'm curious to get your perspective since you've had both.
Honestly, it's like a breath of fresh air, especially on my cortisol level.
I can even see the difference. And we do live together, so
oh damn,
I see it from all aspects.
You guys are like 24/7. There is no hiding.
Yes. But when we do work together, we do be in business, where it's like, okay, we're gonna have that business meeting, but then in a half hour from now, we're gonna go out and we're gonna go to the gym, we're gonna go do something, or we also know when it's time for our time, when, right? Abby is gonna go do something by herself. I'm gonna do something for myself. So we have that good balance.
Yeah, because it's like it's good that you guys can compartmentalize. You're like, this is business time, and then like this is single time, and we know like when those hats come on and when they come off.
One thing I would say is that it can be a little challenging, is that when we are out and about, and I'm very creative, where I just get lots of ideas, and I'll just start talking or spitting things that we have to do,
or just like business ideas. And when I'm in business, when I'm focused on the business, I'm focused on the business. When I'm focused on pleasure, I'm focused on pleasure. So sometimes it's hard for me. I'm like, Taylor, I don't want to think about the business right now.
So I'll just write things down, and I have a whole list of ideas. So that's something that we're definitely working on. It's just being able to enjoy the present moment, have fun when we need to have fun, but also let's talk business when it's time for business.
I think this is the perfect place to close, because for any entrepreneur who's listening right now, take this as your sign to go and have fun.
Yes.
Like, put it on the pen, on the computer, go enjoy a walk or do something, but like take this as your sign.
Exactly.
Like, you're right. I do need to just like turn it off.
Exactly.
And it's true. So important to know when to turn it off, close the laptop, and have fun.
Totally. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. This was so much fun.
Thank you for having us. I had a great time.
Yes, this was awesome. Thank you so much.